We talked yesterday about Quiddy Pay and should we try to trade him and bring in somebody else that would be right around the same price tag. And there were some interesting comments that I got back, some interesting feedback and opinions that I had seen. And today I want to kind of talk a little bit about something that a lot of us have been wondering about, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. going into the draft. What are the chances that something could happen that we could get him? And I'd like to give credit here to at iGoldenWax, who commented and said, package Quiddy Pay with our first rounder to trade up for Marvin Harrison Jr. I know it sounds extreme, but the more people that are open, the less AR will run. And that's a fair point, right? If guys are open and AR is seeing guys open down the field, he's more likely to go ahead and throw the ball. You could always use that. We know we need another receiver. We know how good Marvin Harrison was. So to have Marvin Harrison Jr., if he were to ever wear the horseshoe, that would be special, right? And there was another comment that was on this that I thought was interesting and a good point also, because Daniel Wills says here that at worst, Marvin Harrison Jr. will go third, so it will take more than that to move up for him. I also would love to have him. I just don't know that it will be worth what it would take to go up and get him. And that's a great point, right? Going up and moving up that much is going to take so much. We've seen it in years past. Teams that obviously you move up to number one, you're paying a pretty penny. But if you're moving up into those top five picks, it's gonna cost so much. So you have to wonder what the asking price is. Again, Golden Wax here was talking about Quiddy Pay in a first rounder. In my opinion, it's definitely going to take more than that to be able to move up. And when you look at like the list of candidates of where we could possibly move up here, right now the Bears hold the number one overall pick. And that pick is going to depend entirely on the Panthers and what they do. But right now, Panthers pick belongs to Chicago, and the Panthers are the worst team in the league. So therefore, they would have the number one overall pick, and it would be the Bears. So we'll see what they're going to do. I think there's a really good chance that the Bears end up taking Marvin Harrison Jr. I think it's a very real possibility that they go ahead and keep Justin Fields and pair him with Marvin Harrison Jr. and DJ Moore going forward. That seems pretty realistic to me. But if that doesn't happen, right, if they shock the world this offseason, and I guess it wouldn't really shock the world, a lot of people think they might move on from Justin Fields and try to draft Caleb Williams. But if they do that, right? If they don't take Marvin Harrison Jr., then you look at New England at number two. And if they stay in that spot, then they are probably drafting a quarterback. I would assume. Looks like they want to move on from Mac Jones. Bailey Zappi, obviously not it. Maybe Malik Cunningham might be somebody that they're interested in. But I would assume with the number two overall pick, they'll probably draft, Drake May or Caleb Williams if he's still there, however they feel about it. But the number three overall pick is where it gets interesting. Because with Kyler Murray coming back and the way his contract is set up, it would feel like, nobody's really going to want to trade for Kyler Murray. They're not going to release Kyler Murray. So are they going to draft a quarterback? And if not, would they be willing to fall back a little bit and take some extra draft capital and let somebody else move up to take Marvin Harrison Jr.? Because I think if we don't move up to number three, if we don't make a trade to go up to number three, if Arizona stays there, then Arizona could be a team very easily, probable to be a team where Marvin Harrison Jr. gets picked, right? You think about the weapons that they don't have there in Arizona. They're trying to build around their quarterback. Marvin Harrison Jr. would be a big piece. So we're going to have to give up a lot in order to be able to move up to number three. But it's something that I think would be interesting. But then you have to start to wonder, what is that going to look like? And you have to assume, like, this is where Quiddy Pay comes into it, right? Is for Arizona, they're kind of in a rebuild. That defense definitely needs some work. Go ahead, give them Quiddy Pay. A dog on defense. Jonathan Gannon, as a head coach, would love to have a guy like Quiddy Pay on his defense. So I would imagine, that would be a good fit for both sides. And then the question becomes, what are you giving away in draft capital if you're going to do that? And obviously, we would be giving away our first round pick this year, which looks like it's probably going to be somewhere in the 20s. And then probably going to have to be a first rounder next year. And then, is that worth it? Because then you're looking at more than that, right? You have a first rounder, Quiddy Pay, and then you're probably throwing in, a third rounder for this year and a fifth rounder for next year. Like it's going to cost a lot to move up. So the question becomes, and this is where I want to know your opinion, does that sound like something you'd be willing to do to get Marvin Harrison Jr. paired up with Anthony Richardson and Josh Downs for the long term, right? We're thinking long term. Sure, Michael Pittman Jr., we're hoping he's going to get re-signed, and then we end up, with him here for as long as possible. But how long is he really going to play? Like we're talking Anthony Richardson, Josh Downs, and Marvin Harrison Jr. possibly being together for 10 plus years, and what's that look like in the future? So again, is it worth it to give up Kwity Paye, 2 first-round picks, a third rounder this year, a fifth-round pick next year? Like what would you do in that scenario? Would you push that through? Would you halt on that? Because you think if Arizona somehow, some way doesn't take Marvin Harrison Jr., next up is Washington right now. And there are some other teams around there, right? Washington 4-9, Chicago at number 5, which is the pick they own, and they're 4-8 right now. The Jets, the Giants, and the Titans all have 4 wins. So, that could bounce around. There are definitely some teams in that area that are going to want receivers. So, we're going to have to move up quite a bit in order to be able to get Marvin Harrison Jr. In my opinion, a top 3 pick. Again, I could see him going to Chicago at number 1. That's a total plausible situation that I could see happening, and then New England being the first team that takes a quarterback at number 2. So, a lot of things could happen in this draft. There could be some teams looking to move down and collect some draft capital, and we'll see what happens. But in my opinion, man, if you're asking me, honestly, I think I would be comfortable getting rid of Kwity Paye in those draft picks in order to bring Marvin Harrison Jr. here. Not only just for the story, but for the talent and, again, for the future and what that looks like. Like we're talking about an offense, like in the immediate, it would be an offense where Alec Pierce becomes a depth piece. And what we've seen from Alec Pierce lately, like having him as a depth piece would be pretty nice for us. Like he's been pretty good. He's starting to do more things of an actual NFL wide receiver than just the deep stuff, but we're also hitting him on those deep balls finally. So, right now it's set up in a good situation. We can be in a good situation if the front office does it right. We'll see. There are a lot of good wide receivers. I think any of the wide receivers in the first round and a lot of the wide receivers in the second round are going to be really good NFL players. So, I think one way or another we'll be happy. But of course, with Marvin Harrison Jr. here, that would be great, both for the story and for everything that he brings to the game. There aren't a whole lot of guys that come in and you're just immediately like, this guy's different. But for me, like Justin Jefferson was one of those guys. When I started watching tape on him as he was coming into the NFL, I was like, yeah, this guy is just built different. He moves different than other players. He on the field is just different than everybody else. And that's how Marvin Harrison Jr. is. Really excited about his future. Hope somehow, some way that it ends up being in Indianapolis again. Don't know how realistic that is. But, a man can dream, right? A fan can dream. And we're just putting it out into the universe. Like, hopefully we can find a way to make it happen, but it'll cost a lot. Again, like to know your opinion. You let me know down in the comment section. And we have content on this channel every single day, so don't forget to subscribe with notifications on. Make sure you get notified when all those videos come out. I appreciate you stopping by for another video. And until next time, as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.